protagonist clenching his teeth and slamming his hand in anger. Our protagonist's name is Amek Leo, and he was a jobless player. Today, his whole party was wiped out, and the reason was that the system continuously warned him of something unknown. He immediately looked back in fear and was surprised to see a huge monster with many hands glaring at him. The system warned him that an unknown object had been detected in the game, and its species, abilities, level, and identity were unknown. This encounter would change Leo's destiny. Paradise Heaven was a game released 10 years ago and has now merged with the real world, turning into an MMORPG dungeon. Dungeons and monsters have appeared all over the world, and the survivors of these dungeons are now known as players. 2 hours ago, in an uninhabitable zone called Non-Ecumen, a man shouted at them not to slack off if they wanted their bonus. He ordered Leo, a man with glasses, to pick up the pace, to which Leo tiredly replied, yes. One of the men asked his friend why they had the jobless and inexperienced Leo in their party, and the friend replied that apparently, Leo had experience escaping from Non-Ecumen. Leo overheard their conversation and became angry. The unique dungeon, Non-Ecumen, has spread throughout the entire city, centered on Sakurada Hospital, and is a significantly dangerous level B dungeon. Leo knows that the bonus is good, but because the layout is complex and the clearing difficulty is high, no one has been able to clear it since it appeared. He couldn't clear it either, but he managed to escape and become a player. However, he didn't awaken a job, which determines one's role in that world, so he has been stuck working as a guide there for years. The man praised everyone for their efforts, and Luca, a jurist with a B rank, told everyone to keep up the exploration. Luca asked him about their current status, and he replied that they were in an ideal position. Then he explained that the area between Sotabori and the city center has only weak monsters and is rich in resources, so they can make a profit. Luca smiled and suggested heading for the center area, clearing the B-rank dungeon in one go. This made him nervous because he didn't want to risk his life, but Luca confidently insisted on leading the way. He told Luca to wait and explained that Non-Ecumen is no ordinary B-rank dungeon. With information on the central area that is only 10 years old, it was impossible for them to clear it. He believed they should first gather data on the monsters there. All of a sudden, a hand swiftly shot towards him, surprising him as it grabbed his neck more tightly. Luca sternly told him to pay attention and that they were there to clear the dungeon, so he should stay quiet and do his job. Luca even called him a jobless underachiever. Sweating nervously, he apologized to Luca, and Luca eventually released his grip, noting that he was giving him special treatment because he had experience escaping. He agreed and suggested they proceed to the central area, though in his mind, he was thinking about waiting for an opportunity to escape. However, a sword tip was pointed at his face, and Luca asked him seriously if he had any ulterior motives. If he didn't lead the way, he knew what would happen to him, a worthless nobody. Trembling, he raised his hand and agreed to lead the way, fully aware that his situation was not looking good. Luca sheathed his sword and turned away, clearly annoyed, saying he had soiled his hand. Other players who had witnessed the exchange teased him, calling it lame and reminding him that as a jobless player, he should know better than to talk back to Luca, a B rank. Later, they reached their destination, and Luca asked him if this was the central area, but he silently called Luca an idiot in his mind. He knew they were in a nest area of monsters and planned to escape during the ensuing chaos once the battle began. Suddenly, one of the players called out to Luca, and they saw a B-rank monster approaching. It growled at them, and the players were surprised to see there were so many of them. However, Luca confidently unleashed his firepower, instructing everyone to stay calm as he used his formidable fire magic to take down the monsters, reminding the players that they were just B-rank creatures, making it an easy victory. Leo was awestruck by Luca's strength, realizing he was nearly as powerful as an A-rank player, which made him envious. He thought to himself that he wished he could become that strong too. But then, he felt his detection ability reacting, leaving him puzzled. He sensed a massive approaching presence, so he anxiously informed Luca that something formidable was approaching and that they needed to leave quickly. However, Luca responded angrily, questioning how someone like him could detect such things, and asked him to give it a rest. Leo was about to explain when the ground started to crack, causing panic among him and the other players. The ground collapsed, and they all fell below. Once underground, Luca angrily grabbed his collar and called him useless, accusing him of leading them into a trap, and even threatened to harm him. However, other players shouted for Luca to look at a monster approaching, diverting his attention. Leo noticed that his detection ability had disappeared, leaving him wondering what was happening. Luca pushed him to the ground, acknowledging his impressive feat and mentioning that he would reprimand him later. The monster stopped as it approached and asked if they wanted to play. One of the players informed Luca that it seemed to be time for their mission, while another asked if it was a monster boss. The system presented them with their mission to eliminate the unidentified object within a set time limit. and obtain the hidden treasure of the uninhabitable zone, Ankmany. Once more, Luca unleashed his powerful fire magic and confidently told the monster that he would reduce it to ashes. However, Leo was stunned to witness the monster suddenly vanish, leaving the other players to question if Luca had defeated it. Luca assumed it must still be nearby, urging everyone to remain vigilant. Unbeknownst to him, the monster was reappearing behind them. It attacked them, playfully uttering, "Meanie." One of the players encouraged the group not to back down, assuring them it was nothing special, and the players began their attacks. Yet, the monster swiftly captured several players with its numerous hands and inquired if they wanted to play. It then threw the captured players to the ground in a simultaneous, exuberant, and teasing manner. Leo couldn't believe that it had taken their lives, and he noticed there was no information available about this monster, leaving him baffled about what was happening. Suddenly, the monster slammed its hands near Leo, launching him into the air and causing him to collide hard with the wall. As he fell to the ground, he was shocked to see the monster in front of him. The monster claimed it smelled something familiar and addressed Leo as Daddy, asking if he was her father. This left Leo dumbfounded, as he wondered how he could have such a giant daughter. He realized this didn't make any sense at all. When the monster advised him to stay calm, Leo considered that perhaps there was a way out of this predicament. The monster agreed, lifting its clothing to reveal a large mouth on its belly, and suggested they go home. It excitedly shouted that she gets to go home with her daddy. Leo pondered how things had come to this point as the monster grabbed him, laughing. He shouted for it to stop and listen to her daddy. However, it still tossed him inside its enormous mouth, causing him to wonder if this was how he would meet his end, and believing it was the worst way to go. Then, the system congratulated him for unlocking his hidden job as a dread keeper, similar to a zoo or aquarium worker. Moments later, he slowly opened his eyes and examined his hand, realizing he hadn't been consumed. He looked around, questioning if he was back at his house. The news reporter on the television announced that it was the 30th of January in the year 2100, and the time was 16. Leo grasped the significance of the date and time, realizing that this was 5 hours before the advent of Paradise Heaven. He wondered if he had somehow traveled back in time 10 years and if he possessed the ability to redo his life if he were to die. He excitedly cheered, believing his prayers had been answered and that his new life was beginning. He was too absorbed in his thoughts to notice something appearing behind him. Hands slowly emerged, and the monster from earlier addressed him as Daddy, causing him to fall to the ground in shock. The monster mentioned that her tummy was empty, leaving Leo perplexed and anxious about what was happening. It stared hungrily at him, making him sweat in fear, fearing that he might be eaten again. Then, it extended its hand, grabbed him, and licked him, inquiring about dinner and introducing herself as Suzuko, explaining she was hungry. She asked him for food because she was hungry, and he hurriedly ran to get something, assuring her that he would make her something to eat. She sweetly agreed. A little while later, she asked him what it was, observing many buckets of chicken. He told her that it was all for her. She happily embraced him and expressed her love, leaving him wondering if it was a dream or something. Then, she reached for a piece of chicken, took a bite, and joyfully chewed, remarking that it was delicious. She continued eating while he was busy accessing the system, thinking that feeding her might fill her up. When he looked at his status, he was astonished to find that he had a job called Dread Keeper. He realized it was a unique job and wondered if he had awakened because of Suzuko. The system informed him that Suzuko was a B-rank boss, described as a kept monster corrupted zombie, and her current condition was imperfect and hungry. The system explained the kept monster skill, predation, stating that consuming a monster had a 30% chance of acquiring the monster's abilities. He contemplated what might happen if Suzuko's condition became complete and if he could control other bosses as well through her. The system issued a warning that Suzuko had entered starvation mode with her hunger level at only 50%. In such a state, she would consume any living thing without distinguishing between friend or foe. Suzuko sweetly hugged him and addressed him as Daddy. The system revealed that she had a persistent hunger condition and asked him what to eat because she was still hungry. He thought that it had only been 5 minutes and wondered if normal food was not sufficient. He patted her head, recognizing that, for now, he needed to keep her in a good mood. He kindly told her that sometimes patience was necessary and he would allow her to eat to her heart's content. He thought about acting as a caring father, getting Suzuko's condition to completeness, and how clearing dungeons would become much easier. He envisioned those who had looked down on him in the past feeling ashamed. She couldn't believe that her daddy gave her pats, leaving him a bit confused. However, she tightly grabbed him, expressing her happiness and promising to be a good girl. Her grip was so strong that he started bleeding and asked her to put him down. Suddenly, the reporter on the television announced that something was happening just in time, startling both of them. The television started showing errors, and he exclaimed that it couldn't be. He looked out of the window in panic and noticed that the dungeon advent was earlier than expected. He couldn't believe it and watched as a green light emerged from the ground and reached towards the sky. He recognized the scene as the Black Forest dungeon. Suddenly, something emerged from underground, and a monstrous creature with many eyes appeared before him. He fell to the ground, screaming in fear, and the system warned him that the Black Forest had manifested. He stood there, shocked, staring at it. Suzuko then appeared by his side, shouting that the creature was a pest and angrily telling it to go away. The creature vanished quickly, and the system showed that he was freed from the eyeball. Suzuko then playfully lifted him while exclaiming that her daddy was hers, and he shouted at her to put him down. She complied and asked if it was time to eat yet. He told her that he'd prepare something soon, wondering what was happening. Then he felt a painful sensation on his head, and the system warned him that the strange-kept monster had been detected, and the Black Forest's curse had activated. The Black Forest's level increased, and Suzuko looked at him with concern. He wondered what the curse meant, and the system revealed that if the Black Forest wasn't cleared within 72 hours, he would be permanently confined to it. Suddenly, something emerged from underground, and tree-like monsters appeared. They growled at them, leaving him in a perplexing situation, especially since he hadn't even finished dealing with Suzuko. However, Suzuko exclaimed that they were food, which bewildered him. She enthusiastically shouted that they looked tasty. Suzuko leaped towards the monsters and began grabbing them one by one with her hands. She put one of the monsters in her mouth, and the system showed Leo that he gained experience points, and Suzuko's hunger level increased. She had consumed a yokai of the trees named Kyo and acquired wild conversion with a duration time of 20 minutes. Suzuko enthusiastically exclaimed that they were super delicious and grabbed another Kyo from the ground. Leo realized that she could satisfy her hunger by eating monsters, and the system showed that her hunger level was now fully recovered. He knew he needed to address the curse, something he hadn't encountered before. He remembered that he was supposed to be in Sakurada City's non-Ekumene, not Naru City's Black Forest. The difference was that Suzuko was there with him. Suzuko asked if he wanted some, but he declined, suggesting she should eat up. Leo began pondering if the dungeon aimed to eliminate Suzuko, which meant it was trying to eliminate her owner, him, through the curse. He realized that within 72 hours, he had to escape or potentially clear the dungeon. But he wondered how he and Suzuko could handle the vast forest. As he contemplated, he failed to notice the ground near him breaking. Suddenly, he heard something and was startled to find numerous Kyo surrounding him. Suzuko anxiously called out to him and used her wild conversion skill to fend off the Kyo launching an attack on him. She grabbed him in the Kyo, expressing concern about his well-being. He assured her that he was fine and commended her for doing a good job. However, he noticed that Suzuko had absorbed the Kyo's skill, and to his surprise, the Kyo started glowing. He warned her to be cautious and get away from them, but then a loud explosion occurred, causing the apartment building to shatter. Meanwhile, 24 hours after the Black Forest manifested, in Naru City, Luca tried to reassure the citizens not to be afraid. He claimed to know the enemy's weaknesses and stressed that as a beta tester, everyone should follow his orders. However, when the building collapsed, panic ensued, and people fled. Luca was surprised to face a rank 2 Kyo. One person questioned what the creature was, and another asked what they should do because it seemed different from the ones they had seen before. Luca tried to calm the situation by explaining that there was a way to deal with it. He took a deep breath and shouted, "Job holder." Someone leaped from the building and charged towards the Kyo, striking it and causing the ground to break. When the dust settled, a woman stood atop the defeated Kyo. The rank F jurist, Hayashi Miki, confidently inquired if it was a rank 2 Kyo and assured everyone that it was an easy challenge. Luca echoed her confidence, reminding the citizens to follow his orders for an easy victory. The people cheered, grateful that it was dead, making Miki realize that Luca was adept at convincing people. She couldn't believe that she had only known him for a day. Miki recalled being cornered by the Kyo and questioned Luca, asking who he was and why he had helped her. Luca explained that he was gathering allies to clear the dungeon and considered a job holder like her to be especially valuable. He introduced himself as a beta tester and asked her if she was interested in becoming a hero with him. However, Miki had doubts as she couldn't fathom an ordinary salaryman like Luca becoming a hero. She also noticed that it was an F-rank dungeon, and the monsters were becoming stronger, making her skeptical about the ease of clearing it as Luca had suggested. On top of the tree, Suzuko excitedly declared that it was fun and awesome. She asked Leo if they could do it again, but he replied that he had enough fun. He recognized that Suzuko had saved him, but at the current rate, he might end up dead. Suddenly, he heard Luca shouting to the people that if they wanted to clear the dungeon, they should follow his orders. Seeing Luca from 10 years earlier, Leo realized that Luca had still been a newbie at that time but was skilled. He considered that teaming up with Luca to clear the dungeon might not be a bad idea. They felt a powerful vibration, and Leo anxiously asked Suzuko what was causing it. She responded that it was food, pointing at the Kyo climbing up the tree and deeming them as tasty. Leo couldn't believe that the Kyo were crawling up the tree. People on the ground were puzzled by the tree's strange behavior. Mickey thought that the citizens were overreacting, and Luca warned that things were not looking good. They observed the tree slowly breaking, and Luca called out to Mickey, shouting for her to run. Unfortunately, the tree fell before she could escape. When the smoke cleared, Leo realized that he was still alive and felt a soft sensation. However, Mickey called him a punk and pointed a sharp dagger at him, warning him to stop moving around. Fearfully, Leo claimed it was just a minor accident. She pulled him out from her chest, asking if he had fallen from the tree and scolding him for his nerve. Leo tried to explain it was a coincidence, as he had been nearby. However, Suzuko broke the ground, asking where he was and where he had gone. Mickey questioned what was happening, but then Suzuko appeared in front of them and announced that she had found him, surprising them both. Leo was about to take action, but Mickey activated her power, asserting that she would handle the situation and protect him from the monster, stating that heroes don't run from danger. Leo was left feeling confused. After Mickey finished preparing her weapon, she glared at Suzuko and teasingly challenged her to come at her, leaving Leo wondering about the unexpected turn of events. He realized that Mickey had mistaken Suzuko for an enemy. Mickey jumped toward a confused Suzuko and used her skill to trap Suzuko inside. Leo shouted a warning to look out, which surprised Suzuko. Mickey thought she had Suzuko trapped, but Suzuko simply slapped her on the side and excitedly asked Leo if he had been worried about her. Leo smiled, knowing that he wasn't worried about Suzuko. He hurried to where Mickey had fallen, asking if she was alright and hoping she wasn't dead. He was relieved to find that Mickey was unconscious. Leo scratched his head, contemplating what to do. Suzuko asked if she could eat Mickey, but Leo firmly told her not to eat people. He carefully lifted Mickey, thinking that if he remembered correctly, she was a jurist in Luca's party. He considered that if he saved her, Luca might let him join the party without any issues. However, he realized that it wouldn't work if they found out about Suzuko. Leo asked Suzuko for a favor to hide for a while. Suzuko questioned why, and Leo responded by asking her the same question. Then, he promised to treat her to something delicious if she hid well and searched for tasty things. Suzuko eagerly agreed and promptly disappeared. Leo sweetly told her that he would search for her treats, so she should be a good girl and wait. The system showed him that the effects of the curse had significantly weakened, making him realize that the curse had weakened, perhaps because Suzuko was hidden. He contemplated the situation, thinking that if that was the case, he would have Suzuko remain hidden, get Luca to find the boss, and then have Suzuko defeat the boss. A moment later, Mickey woke up and sat up, feeling her head hurt. Leo reassured her that she was awake and expressed his relief that she was okay. Mickey asked what had happened with the monster, and Leo told her that it had run off somewhere, thanks to her help. He respectfully referred to Mickey as older sister. Confused, Mickey admitted that she didn't remember everything clearly but recognized that it had been dangerous. She suggested they go somewhere safe, and Leo smiled, thinking that everything was going as he had planned. Mickey asked for his name, and knowing that they would eventually find out about Suzuko, Leo decided to use a fake name for the time being. He introduced himself as Himajin and asked for her name. She revealed that her name was Hayashi Mickey and invited him to call her Mickey. She offered her hand to him, and he accepted it, expressing that it was nice to meet her. Suzuko watched them and felt a familiar sensation. Leo quietly called Suzuko and instructed her to follow them discreetly so they could find food. Suzuko agreed without hesitation. Mickey reminded Leo not to get separated, and he assured her that he would stay close. Suzuko silently followed them from behind. Later, in an abandoned building, Luca asked for the mission report and inquired about Teams 3 and 4's progress in finding Mickey. A team member reported that they were still searching for her. Luca wondered what Mickey was up to and shouted for everyone to hurry up and find her, acknowledging that without her, their whole party might have been wiped out. The team member assured Luca that they would definitely find her and asked him to calm down. However, the truth was that Luca was more concerned about Mickey's extraordinary ability, and begged silently that she be safe. Suddenly, Mickey entered the building with Leo and greeted Luca. Luca stood up in excitement and warmly welcomed her back. He asked Mickey if the boy next to her was her little brother, but Mickey clarified that he was not her brother, though she had saved him from a dangerous situation. Suzuko playfully told Leo that only her daddy could see her. Leo greeted Luca and introduced himself as Himajin, concealing his true identity in his mind and implying that it had been a long time since they had seen each other. Leo asked Luca if he could join his party, and Luca welcomed him, saying he could join because he was with Mickey. However, Luca couldn't help but find Leo's face seriously creepy, raising suspicions in his mind. To learn more about Leo's identity, Luca decided to use his exclusive skill for analysis. Luca's skill started to analyze Leo while Leo asked if there was something he could help with. As Luca's skill analyzed Leo, it encountered an unknown factor in its analysis. Luca patted Leo's head and commented that it was good to see him motivated. He introduced himself as boss. However, Luca's skill still failed to identify Leo. Leo replied with an okay while Luca wondered why he couldn't see any information about him, and all the tests he ran on him failed. Luca praised Leo for his efforts and suggested that they see. Leo was confused, but then the system issued a warning. Luca realized that the system had failed every time and couldn't determine Leo's identity. Luca suddenly felt pain in his head and saw Suzuko behind Leo, warning him not to peek. Leo asked if Luca was alright, and Luca shouted in fear, remaining silent for a moment as he looked at Leo. Miki asked Luca what was wrong, and Suzuko told Leo that she had just startled Luca a little, making Leo realize that it was Suzuko's doing. They then heard a loud noise that startled them all. Luca panicked and asked about the loud noise. As he began to walk toward the source of the sound, a loud explosion occurred in front of them. Luca couldn't believe that the factory had exploded and wondered what was happening. One of the men shouted that the tree was moving, and Suzuko asked if they should run. However, Leo whispered to her, telling her to wait and keeping his detection ability active. He sensed that the monsters were agitated and wondered what had excited them. Then he noticed the fire on the wall and shouted for everyone to listen to him. He told them to move away from the fire because rank 3 timber yokai were approaching. A monster slowly emerged from the fire, and a timber yokai with rank 3 abilities appeared, launching its roots to attack them. Everyone screamed in horror. Luca was surprised to see a rank 3 timber yokai and wondered how Leo knew about it, especially since Leo was unidentifiable and well-informed. This made Luca consider whether Leo had savior potential like him. Luca imagined Leo taunting him, suggesting he could defeat him and calling him old news. He wondered if Leo had deliberately tested him and aimed to make a fool of him to take his place as the leader. The system showed Luca that the savior bonus for defeating the boss of the Black Forest had increased to 10,800. Confirming his suspicion that Leo planned to become the leader and claim the bonus. Luca generated something, thinking about the new player protection period that allowed only one savior per dungeon. He swore to make Leo regret entering his dungeon and shouted for the others to follow his orders. He commanded them to start a counterattack. Miki warned Luca to watch out, but it was too late. The timber yokai attacked Luca and the others in the front with its roots, causing a loud explosion. Fortunately, Miki shielded Leo while telling him that they couldn't rely on Luca and the others anymore. She noted that she was reaching her limit as well and advised him to get everyone out while he still could. Miki hugged him tightly and asked if he understood, to which Leo replied, okay. However, Leo found it odd that the timber yokai were still evolving, despite the reduced curse. As a swarm of flaming yokai approached them, Miki quickly pushed Leo behind her and urged him to run. Leo hesitated, finding it difficult to flee even when told to do so. However, Suzuko, who had been hiding using her skill, couldn't resist her hunger any longer. She revealed herself and excitedly shouted for treats. Then she pounced toward the approaching yokai. Miki was shocked to see the same monster from before and observed Suzuko enjoying her whole roast barbecue. She watched as Suzuko devoured the flaming yokai while Leo scolded her for being more interested in food than his well-being. Leo was concerned that the curse would grow stronger again. The system revealed a new ability called synchronization, which allowed him to temporarily gain a kept monster's skill for 20 minutes, with a limit of 4 uses per day. Leo considered his noob status, realizing he only had one skill and wondering if other monsters would see him as their daddy. However, he believed that ordinary monsters were likely too simple-minded to recognize him in that way. He pondered whether he could control the boss of the Black Forest and if doing so would break the curse. Just as he was contemplating his next move, someone grabbed his shoulder. It was Miki, warning him of the danger and urging him to escape while he had the chance. However, Leo had a different plan in mind. He explained to Miki that, while the monsters were distracted, he would attempt to defeat the boss. He recognized it as a gamble but believed it was their best chance. Leo also suggested that Luca might know the boss's location, and with the timber yokai continuously evolving, they needed to act quickly. Miki agreed with his plan and took him in her arms, running swiftly while telling him to hold on tight. Meanwhile, in Naru's city's underground ruins, a monster lady with long hair sweetly declared that she had found him, referring to Leo as her daddy. On the other hand, Luca was facing the excited boss and told everyone that with how fast those plants grow, and the smell of flowers meant it had to be the boss, making everyone shout that they knew they could count on Luca. But Luca thought, while the timber yakai is focused on down below, he'll slip in, defeat the boss, and clear the dungeon because he cares more about the bonus than that little shrimp, which is Leo. But suddenly, a few of the people held their head in pain, making Luca wonder what the heck happens. Then he saw a few people's eyes begin to change green and become monsters, making the insane people panic and ask what was going on and if that wasn't supposed to be a level F dungeon. He told them not to panic, knowing that he had to stay calm, and told them that the difficulty only went up a bit, so they should proceed. One of the men worriedly asked him if they even stood a chance and told him that even against the rank 3 timber yakai, they were defeated. He was angry hearing it and cut off the man's head, wondering how that man dares give orders to the savior, and thought that the man was an eyesore. The system showed Luca that he earned the level E job owner NPC subjugation bonus is 1,300 experience points. Also, level E job acquisition is possible, and asked him if he will acquire the job card. The people were shocked at his action and asked him what had he done. But he just thought that the bonus for defeating the timber yakai was a measly few hundred. But he got 1,000 for killing one nobody NPC. He knows that he can't subdue the boss and earn his bonus, so he thinks if that is the case, he'll just earn points from all of them. A moment later, Leo was about to ask something to Mickey, but she understood what it was and agreed with him. Then she told him that without a doubt about it, he could see the traces of the battle. Suddenly, someone shouted that Luca was out of his mind, so they should run, making them surprised, and Mickey immediately ran to where the voice was coming from. She was surprised to see a lot of dead people on the ground and Luca holding a dead man in his hand. She called him and shouted, asking him what is he doing, but he just calmly looked at her and told her that she come. He faced her while telling her that she had got it wrong. She furiously reminded him that he promised they'd all clear the dungeon together, but he was killing allies, and told him that he had lost it. He told her that they were the ones who went crazy and asked her if she didn't smell the scent of flowers. She asks him what about it, and he replies that if she breathes it in, she becomes the boss's underling, which is why he kills them. Then he lifted his sword and gave it to her, telling her that he was actually an underling too, so she had to kill him. She worriedly asked how it came to it and if they couldn't defeat the boss together, but he shouted that it was impossible. Still, she asked him if he wasn't a beta tester and if he didn't know another way, then told him not to give up. He told her that if she didn't kill him, there was one other way. She asked him what it was, and he replied that it was he would kill her, and launched an attack on her. He pierced the sword into her stomach and pinned her down on the ground. He teasingly told her that she was just an NPC and asked her how dare she presume to give advice to him, the protagonist. He stabbed harder with the sword into her stomach and told her that he shouldn't have expected anything, and explained to her that he saved her because he wanted a high-level job. He teasingly told her that it was too bad for her because she could at least fulfill one final role. Then he activated his job card, and the system asked him if he wanted to forcibly steal a job card from the target who was still living, to which he agreed, and the system began to force job card extraction on her. A moment later, he got Mickey's role job and shouted that it was incredible to have a level S job. But then someone called Mickey's name sweetly, telling her to wait up, making Luca surprised and wonder what that voice was. But when he looked back, he just saw Leo asking what is all the fuss about. When Leo saw everything, he asked Luca if he came at a bad time. Luca replied that it was perfect timing and asked him what is it that he wanted. Leo awkwardly asked Luca back what is he talking about. But Luca told him that it was no use playing dumb and that he was a better actor than him. Then Luca teasingly told him not to be so tense, making him notice that Luca's behaving strangely. He felt bad for Mickey but decided to get out of there because he knew that where there's life, there's hope. Suddenly, Luca used his skill while telling him that he was not going anywhere, and he had locked him with his will. He noticed that it is a physical manifestation of the will, the precursor to an awakened job, making him wonder how, knowing that Luca doesn't have a job. Luca told him that he thought for sure he was aiming to usurp his position, but to think he wouldn't spare a glance for Mickey's level S ability, he was stupid. He wondered what Luca was going on about and was surprised to hear that Mickey's level is S because it was news to him. Luca told him that the reason the dungeon changed was because both of them were time-slipped called saviors, and asked him if he increased the difficulty. He was surprised to hear that Luca's a time slipper, and he knows that there are all kinds of time slippers: weirdos who save people just for fun, brutes who kill people virtuously, heroes who sacrifice themselves for others, loonies who take pleasure in the dungeons, and freakish players who are essentially calamities. Their abilities are full of unknowns, and if Luca is one, then it all fits. Luca asked him what his objective status was and if it was business or perhaps a clear bonus, but he knew that Luca would kill him eventually, so he needed to buy time until Suzuko caught up. He put his hand on his head and told Luca that he was surprised he saw through him. Then he told Luca that he was right because it was all his doing. Luca replied that now they were talking, and he told Luca that he snuck into another savior's dungeon when it opened, causing the difficulty to change, as well as the value of the bonus. Luca told him that he must be pretty pleased that his plan's going well, making him smile, thinking that Luca believes everything he was saying, so he planned to act the part thoroughly. Then he laughed and asked Luca if shouldn't he be thanking him because thanks to him, that dungeon was even more thrilling. Luca agreed that it was intriguing and that the bonus had changed already, but he just smiled, thinking that Luca was a moron. Suddenly, Mickey furiously called Leo and asked him if he was in it together, then she told them that they were both insane. Luca kicked Mickey's face and furiously told her to shut her mouth, but Leo was frustrated that even Mickey took him seriously. Luca obtained a level S Juris job card, and he was amazed at the power of a job. Luca thinks that compared to waiting to awaken, stealing is a piece of cake, and it is a mysterious experience. Leo asks Luca if they shall cooperate from there on out. But suddenly, they hear a loud scream, making Luca panic. He is surprised to see a swarm of possessed people and Kios launching toward him, making him ask Leo what did he do. Luca asks him if he wants him to cooperate with him who called the monsters. When he was about to reply, Luca laughed hard and shouted that, in the end, it was the best a child could come up with. Then Luca jumped toward him and grabbed a spear to attack, making him surprised. Luca teasingly told him that there was no way he'd work with someone like him. Luca attacked him, which created a loud explosion. The smoke slowly disappeared, and Luca was pinned to the ground by Suzuko, while shouting at her to let him go. Luca told her to stop and that he was the savior, so she should let